That is my PowerPoint presentation because, frankly, I couldn't find it on my computer a while ago. I got so many files. But I'm going to use a handout, and some folks are going to start passing that out, and I'll get to that in a minute, but it'll take a minute to hand out. What I want to do, though, is I think Colleen did a good job of pointing the relationship between orca, salmon, and dams, and specifically the Snake River dams. And now, why those four? We've got, a lot of dams in the Columbia Basin. And it's been well known since the 1930s that building those four dams would have significant impacts on salmon. And so when they were built, they had fish ladders and so forth, and everybody thought it'd be fine. Well, it was a disaster. And the problem is that on the Snake River, the stocks that they can get through the dams, but not very easily. And so there's a great deal of mortality getting over those dams. And part of the problem is those are the, four dams on the Columbia, four dams on the Snake. So by the time those fish get to the uppermost Snake River Dam, that's called Lower Granite, there's a lot of mortality. And so that's what we studied 15 years ago. That's what we came to the conclusion that the only real way to save these salmon, the biology was about you have to breach those four dams. Now, that wasn't what happened, even though I recommended we do that, for all kind of mostly political reasons, cultural, whatnot. And but the big reason was, the excuse was the economics of the situation, and it was our people were saying, and I said it too, is that hey, the economics on these dams is such that if you breach them, it'll cost a lot to the economy. Now, some of us were very skeptical of those numbers, but we didn't have a quick way of proving it. And so that's what I've done in the meantime. Since being in damnation, I kind of went back and redid all that. And I'm going to cover that in just a few minutes, and that's what that handout is. But a couple more points I want to get to about the why we need to breach. And two of your questions are good about that. You mentioned climate change and so forth. I believe it was
her. I mentioned
okay over there. Let me try to hit this. Okay, so climate change, not only is it, yes, it's going to increase temperatures, we have that pristine habitat that Colleen mentioned in Idaho, cool water, but we can't get the salmon there because of the four dams. The other issue is that climate change is heating these reservoirs. They're already too hot, and we're just now seeing the effects of climate change. Today, Ice Harbor Dam hit 70 degrees. Do you know what 70 degrees Fahrenheit does to salmon? It kills them. Okay, so that is what just happened today. Well, climate change hasn't even kicked in yet. So we're already heating up reservoirs. Now, heating up reservoirs also creates methane. And so all this stuff you hear about dams are green energy, and Governor Inslee goes on about, oh my God, they have a zero carbon footprint. Yes, they don't. That's correct. They don't give off carbon, but they do give off methane. Methane is 85 times more potent than CO2. So you can see we have a problem here. And so, anyway, that's part of the climate change. You mentioned Hanford, I guess it was, and the cleanup. An interesting thing we came across, just chance conversation over where I live in Port Angeles, is a former DOE employee, Department of Energy employee, was asking me, what's going to happen to the sediment that's going to come down the river once you breach the dams? And I said, well, it's going to end up behind McNary Dam on the Columbia River. I went, oh my. And then he goes, oh, you know what? That might be a good thing. He said, how much is going to come down there? I said, about 6 inches. It's not enough to affect navigation or anything, but about that much. He goes, you know what that'll do? That'll cap the radioactive contamination that's in the Columbia River behind the McNary Dam. It's been trapped there since plutonium was used in bomb production at Hanford. That stuff is down there now, emitting radiation that has an effect on the biology of the system. So here we have a problem that, once again, the solution is dam breaching. Now, what I'm going to do real quick, you're going to get a crash course in economics. Now, I have to tell you, this is our cost and economics reanalysis. of the Corps' own documents. We have managed to get this down to one page. Now, as awful as this looks, it is just one page. And so what I want to do is you should all have this by now. I want to point out a couple numbers on here that you can use in your discussion, because I'm assuming now, at this point, given Colleen and what I said, is you understand that these dams need to come down. But if you say that to somebody, they're going to say, oh yeah, but the economics, the hydropower, and all this, and the jobs will be lost. Well, this is your backup. This is your cue sheet. And that's what this is. So what I want to do is point out a couple things. First off, the Corps, with your tax money, has invested over $800 million. And that, on the upper left side of that chart, under Keep the Dam, you see that big red arrow going down? Well, if you don't have color, it's the big arrow going down. $800 million, your tax money, spent on retrofitting those dams to improve bypass for juvenile fish going downriver. Guess what you got for your money? Zero. Salmon, wild salmon survival rates are worse than they were when we started. Okay? Anybody say, well, we got hatchery fish. Guess what? Survival rates for hatchery fish are worse. Well, wait a minute. We've been hearing all this stuff from NOAA Fisheries. We got record runs like last year. They're not as good this year, but last year, oh yeah. Well, if you compare them to the 1990s when we almost lost the whole damn run, true. But if you go back to 1960, before the dams, heck no. We had a heck of a lot more salmon. That was what, Colleen's chart showed that. And what did we have pre-dams? A lot more salmon. We have about 2 or 3% left. The other thing is about all this is people say, well, let's work on it another 5 years. Judge just came out with a decision. He said, oh, you feds screwed up again. You need to consider breaching. Oh, and then what did he do? He gave them 5 years. They asked for 5 years to do more studies. We've been studying this for 25 years. This one cost $33 million. And it tells us we need to breach them. So what on earth are we going to do, spend another $200 million on studies and plans, when in fact we already have an environmental impact statement that has breaching in it and is sitting there right now that the President of the United States can pull the trigger on. Point is, we cannot rely on a federal judge or the court system or litigation to do anything fast enough. We are out of time. The biologists that I depend on, the government biologists, some of these are in the Corps of Engineers, are telling us we're within 1 or 2 years. If we don't start breaching, we're within 1 or 2 years of losing wild stocks. Hatcheries are shortly behind them, and those guys will be the next to suffer. Okay? So, that's what your investment got you. Nothing. Hydropower. Guess what? Pacific Northwest has 18% surplus hydropower. And so just circle that number over on the right. When you see hydropower on the right-hand side, under remove, you'll see surplus sources. Just keep that in mind. We have surplus power. So you can remove these dams and nothing will happen in the power grid. Okay, so what else is kind of fun on here? People think these are flood control projects. Oh my God, you hear that? No, they're not. They do not provide flood protection. In fact, one of the dams, the uppermost dam, actually causes flooding or can cause serious flooding in Lewiston, Idaho. Jobs. Oh, we're going to collapse the economy of Eastern Washington. Wrong. If you breach, you're going to get at least 3,000 to 4,000 jobs just in recreation. Never mind the orchards and vineyards that can be put back into the lower Snake Valley, and you know what all that looks like, the trappings that go along with vineyards and wineries and restaurants on a river. Whew, man, we're talking something here. I'm not going to go through all this because I just want to give you a feel, but bottom line, keep the dams. Look at the top left under where it says keep the dam. You see that 15 cents on the dollar? That is the benefit cost ratio. That means for every dollar of your tax money or rate money that you put into these dams, you get 15 cents back. Now, I don't need to tell you, that's not a good deal. So I want you to, let's just get this. Say after me, 15 cents on the dollar. 15 cents on the dollar. So now when you talk about orcas and salmon, they say economics, you say 15 cents on the dollar. And then they're going to say, oh, I don't believe that. Then you show them this, and you can talk about a couple of those things. If you remove the dams, we're talking anywhere from $4 to $20 benefit for dollar investment. That's pretty damn good. In fact, I just got off the phone with the top budget guy in the Corps of Engineers this morning, reminding him of this, and I said, what is your current standard for benefit cost ratio on a core project? 2.5 to 1. That means $2.50 for every dollar invested. We're at 15 cents on these 4 dams. I said, you know, I can be 200% wrong. And this still is horrible investment. Okay, so one other, there's a couple other things that are fun on here. The little chart shows you the comparison between keeping these dams, and you can see that red line has all kind of cost, and breaching the dams is actually pretty cheap. By the way, these dams are real easy to breach. They have earthen berms, you just wash them away with the river. Really simple. This is far simpler than even Condit or the Elwha dams. And I guess one other point is at the very bottom, it says it costs more to kill Snake River salmon than to save them. This is true. We are spending tons of money, and all we're doing is killing salmon. So anyway, that is your economic lesson, cost and economics. So I hope that you're armed now. I'm not an economist, so I'm like you. I'm like, well, what does this stuff mean? Well, anyway, this is your cue card, your scorecard, whatever you want to call it. So go out there and do stuff. Now, where are we to just kind of wrap this up? What do we need to be doing right now? We have been briefing people in Washington, D.C. We've been trying to brief congressional staffers. That's not easy. And we're having a tough time at it. We have presented the case. They cannot argue with this stuff. It's their numbers we're using. So what does it take? It takes public pressure at this point. That's you guys. So how do you do that? I know a bunch of you have been calling the White House. Some people call every day. You need to do that. 202-456-1111. Some of you got that on your phones. Oh. Corps of Engineers calling. Should I take it right now? Yes. Hello? Mindy? Oh, hello? Hello? Oh, hi, Mindy. How are you doing? Well, I'm standing in front of about 100 people at a conference and just talking about the Corps of Engineers. So, there you go. You hear that? They're saying hi, Mindy.
15 cents on the dollar. 15
cents on the dollar. We just gave them an economic lesson in the Snake River dams, and they understand now that 15 cents on the dollar is all you get for your dams. Anyway, I better get back to this, but I did one. I'll call you back in a few minutes. So bye, Mindy. Bye. All right. We got them listening. They're calling. But they keep telling us, well, you got to get Senator Murray to kind of, not get mad if the president breaches dam. Or how about Governor Inslee? We don't want to make him mad. Well, we're running for re-election. Well, you know what, folks? We don't have time for those kind of excuses. We really need to put the pressure on them. So the letters you write, the calls you make, heck, it's time to start doing protests and sitting down. Some of us were out there when Obama came to town a few weeks ago protesting. It's time for that kind of stuff. Other things you can do, we have a Facebook page called Damn Sense. It's on that card that we just went around. I would ask you to like us on Facebook. My social media people, I'm not a Facebook person. They say, you got to do that, Jim. Get them to like Damn Sense because we post a lot of information there. It's, what's going on currently. So do that, call. We need help. I'm looking for an associate, assistant to work over in Port Angeles with me. If anybody's interested in coming to work with me for a year, let's come, get with me and let's talk about salary. And then finally, if you can't take the time to get involved, read reports or do stuff or get active, you can always go to we got a little GoFundMe thing that's I think on the back of that card. Drop 10 or 20 bucks on us or something, because that's going to help pay for that associate. And the only thing, we've got about 6 volunteers, professionals like myself and others that are doing this. The only people that get any money, we hire some of the economists, and they, for about a third of what their cost, we do take, and all the Orca community is paying for this so far. That you guys are the help. And we also are trying to pay for, a coordinator of all this information. So that's the only thing that we're looking for money for, is to just basically, pay for the economist and get some coordinator help in here. So that's what I've got to tell you. If you got any questions, I do that quick.
Well, Dam Sense is 2 words on Facebook, not 1 word. The 1 word is a software company.
Yeah.
2 words on Facebook.
We found that it takes a couple tries to get it, and once it sinks in on your phone or something, it'll pop up.
Jim, I'm just wondering, we talked a lot yesterday about us getting the message right that the Orca scientists are giving us, and I want to make sure that we get the message correct on this. Is it correct for us to set, I get so aggravated when I hear people talking about dams being green or being sustainable or being renewable, because although they don't, perhaps they're better than coal or whatever, they kill entire ecosystems. So is it, what kind of language can we use when people are saying that dams are renewable and clean and green? I mean, I know that this is there a term you guys use, or can we invent one for you that sort of describes what dams do?
Well, you often will see green, in brackets, and that's because of what you're saying. People recognize that they really aren't green, although that term gets used. And they're not green for all the biological reasons. In addition, in some cases, the methane issue. And methane is so serious in the southern hemisphere that they actually have realized that the dams are putting out more carbon than the coal plants that they replaced. It's not quite that bad in the northern hemisphere yet, but it's going to get worse. So, you have to look at a dam as a tool. It's a means to an end. And any one of these dams is different. I mean, they're all different. And so it's difficult to generalize about a dam. And so the best thing to do is, like what we're saying is, on the Snake River, these dams are especially egregious to salmon migration, and their temperature issues are the worst. At 70 degrees already, and here it is, it's 21st of July. Normally that doesn't happen until the end of August. Oh, somebody mentioned cooling with the generators. On the Snake River, that's been tried, and they're doing everything they possibly can, and it doesn't help. The only thing that does help is there's a dam up in Idaho called Dorjak, 700 feet. That 700-foot dam does have cold water at the bottom. That water is used to cool down one reservoir in the Snake River, the top one. However, they did that this year early to keep the Idaho sockeye from getting killed like they did last year. Problem is, they shot their wad with that cold water, and now they don't have it for the fall Chinook. Why did they do that? They didn't want to get in the press this summer. Why? Because if they can make it till August or September without any bad press, then they're probably thinking Obama doesn't have time to breach these dams. We've still got about 2 months of pressure to put on these guys to get him to breach these dams, the first one starting in December. But only you guys can do that at this point. I mean, we're calling and doing our stuff, but 1 or 2 people, is punching in these facts is not going to do it. It's going to take public pressure. You guys got to deliver that. Anybody else? Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. So I know, historically, the salmon runs are way down. So what can we expect if the 4 lower dams are breached? How long, how much more salmon are we going to have, and then how long will it take to get that amount?
The biologists were very, very conservative about that. Say, well, it'll take 20 or 30 years before. if LWA is an indication, though they're wrong, it'll come back pretty quick. I mean, within the first year of breaching of the upper dam, they had 1,000 beds or redds in there already. So, you know, and that's the thing, is that the Snake River itself is habitat for Chinook. And that's been ignored by scientists pretty much consistently in the government. So you immediately get that back. But let's face it, it's 3 years before you get adults back. And the problem is, like I said, we're running out of time. Every year you wait, you're adding 10 or 20 years to your recovery cycle. It's getting that desperate. So that's why time is of the essence. But, you know, it's the estimates are anywhere from 2 to 3 million salmon in the Snake River with dam breaching. At least it was a few years ago. That means there's a lot more out in the ocean for the orcas, okay? Because you can't get 2 or 3 million, you know, unless you have 3 or 4 million out in the ocean. Okay.
Sorry, one more question. Is it true to say that the president can just sign an executive order or something to breach the like? Is that a true statement for us to be saying? Yes.
At least let's put it this way. From my policy analysis, and we've discussed this with the Corps of Engineers, they have not told us, no, we can't do that. They have agreed that they do have a fiduciary responsibility, and we've also pointed out that Bonneville Power is the bill payer for breaching, and this is critical. Bonneville Power is not federally funded. They're ratepayer money. That means you don't have to go to Congress for the appropriations. That's why the president can do it. He can't do that on just about any other dam in the country.
I just want to emphasize, I was on the call this morning with the Corps in DC. They said nothing is going to happen unless we push them. That was the bottom line message. So we really need public support, especially to Patty Murray's office. And calls to Obama wouldn't hurt, but we really need to pressure Patty Murray at this point, or it's not going to happen for us.
So what are the numbers?
Yeah, for Patty Murray.
We have some cards outside with the numbers on them.
Another question.
Oh, one more question.
Can you briefly explain to me how it is that dams are creating this much methane?
Sure. Reservoirs have algae in them, okay? And the warmer the reservoir, the more algae. And it's that the chemical process of algae breaking down that gives off methane. That's why if you're from the east, you know, you go on a farm pond, it kind of smells like sulfur. That's methane. And so that's the process at work there.
Thanks, Ken.